Right. Good evening, everyone. What? Thank you. Thank you, Mark. A very warm welcome to this Portishead Town Council meeting, and I'm as you all might. I'm Paul Gardner. I'm the chair of the meeting, and my role today is to run the meeting and to time and enable people to have their say. We have a few ground rules, one of which is if you want to speak, can you address to myself, and I will field any questions. If I can't answer them now, we'll get back to you after the meeting. I'll explain the other ground rules as we go along for people who are not familiar with town council meetings. We have a couple of sort of small items to do, just housekeeping at the beginning. If there's a fire, the fire exits are out the back here. Go through here, follow Mike. Yeah, and at the front as well, of course. Yeah. I think we've got a couple of apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Emma Blackmore and Councillors Mariam Afzal. Is everyone happy to accept those apologies? So raise your hands. Okay, so that's formally accepted. Do any councillors have any financial or other personal interests in any of the items this evening? If so, could you raise your hand? If not, I would assume that's all no's. So there are no financial or other interests. Obviously, if someone belatedly discovers they have one, please let us know before the item. Okay, so number 4 on the agenda is the chair's update. Just checking everyone online. All people online, okay, are they working? Can people online hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you. Okay, right. So the chair's update, I just wanted to give you an update on devolution, which is obviously a hot topic at the moment. I mean, this is, I think this is officially called an ordinary council meeting, but today's meeting is far from ordinary, as we're here to discuss what is probably the largest change in the scope of the services provided by Portishead Town Council in the last 50 years. So a quick history lesson. Back in 1974, the government at the time decided to centralise local government and abolished all of the urban district councils at the time, including Portishead Urban District Council. I'm sure Bobby you remember it well. But sorry. So at a stroke, all the assets of the Portishead Urban District Council were actually given away to the newly formed Woodspring District, I think, at the time, and then later passed to North Somerset when there was even more centralisation. The lost assets, of course, included the lake grounds, which had been purchased by the Urban District Council, i.e. by the people of Portishead in 1950. It was given away, and as was Somerset Hall, which was built by the Urban District Council only 3 years beforehand. Even the old council building, which is now Vale Vets, was taken away, leaving the newly formed council nowhere to meet. So it was a fairly ruthless exercise at the time. So we're now 52 years later, the wheel has kind of turned full circle, and North Somerset is asking all of the towns across North Somerset to take on assets and services that it can unfortunately no longer afford to maintain. And that's due to obviously the ever increasing costs of providing statutory, i.e. mandatory services such as adult and children's social care. On the other hand, the government funding it receives from central grants has fallen every year in real terms since the financial crash in 2008. So it's a double whammy, really. But anyway, a lot of other councils across the country in the same position, and local devolution has already happened in many places, included Somerset, Wiltshire, Cornwall, which is quite handy for us because it means we've been able to talk to a lot of other councils who've been going through the process or are much further ahead. So, although born out of adversity, I think personally it's a genuinely exciting opportunity for the town council to work together with our residents and for us together to manage the future of public land and local services in Portishead in a way that most benefits most people. So, of course, along with the opportunity, there's a serious responsibility to do it well. And unfortunately, we need to raise the local council tax, which is known as the precept, in order to pay for maintaining and improving those public assets over time. For those who don't know, the precept is the only tax that people pay that has to be spent in Portishead, so it won't go into a black hole somewhere else. But notwithstanding that, we obviously need to ensure that every single pound is spent effectively. So last summer we ran a consultation process and that about local devolution, which reflected an overwhelming majority of the, I think, 670 odd respondents in favour. And again, yes, but people told us that the assets like the Lake Grounds are highly valued places and part of what makes Portishead special. And we as a council believe it's our public duty to protect, maintain and enhance these assets for the community. We should also point out, I guess, that we have to raise the precept before, but it's always been done on the back of consultation, and we've taken heed of what people have asked us to do. People asked us to provide more services and protect their assets and basically protect and evolve Portishead as an even better place to live. We'll continue to run extensive public engagement through the devolution rollout. And we'll come to the money part in a minute. But I just wanted to refer to a North Somerset Times article today, which made some odd comparisons between 2019 and 27, sort of comparing not like for like situations, but over the last few years, the Town Council has been left up to pick up some new unfunded roles and responsibilities, and by far the largest of those is going to be taking responsibility for open spaces and parks. So you can't compare the two sets of costs from 2019 to 2027. Be like comparing the cost of a bicycle in 2019 with the cost of a family car in 26-27. They're fundamentally different. The North Somerset Times article talks a lot about percentages, but I don't know about you, but every time I go shopping, I don't go to Aldi or Sainsbury and pay for my groceries in percentages. I pay in pounds. So we have a preset rise in a proposal of £1.60 per week, which would take the total cost for a household to £4.33 per week for a Band D household, which is a kind of 3-bedroom semi-type house. Clearly, we will be going through that and explaining to people where the money will go, because it has to be value for money and provide benefit to people. Anyway, the North Somerset Times article was interesting. We welcome the debate and thank them for the concerned resident for raising the profile of devolution and the need for investment. We look forward to continuing discussions here and elsewhere, and as devolution unfolds, and particularly welcome ideas and support to turn them into reality. In the immediate future, we have a drop-in session this Friday in the Imperial Lounge. Sorry, not this Friday, next Friday the 30th at 3 o'clock, and there will be many other opportunities to engage on this topic, because obviously it's a substantial change for the town. Fundamentally, we believe by taking local control and working with residents, we can deliver better services and cost-effective improvements over time. As I said, the finances are the key main topic of this meeting. Councillor John Davey, who's our financial guru, he's going to talk through the detailed budget proposal a bit later. And so to summarise, and for me to shut up, you'd be glad to know, it's a great privilege and honour to be here as a councillor, frankly, in January 2026 with this huge opportunity in front of us. We look forward to working with you and making it a huge success. I'm sure there'll be some challenges, but I'm sure by working together, we can overcome them. So thank you for listening. Thank you. Next item is I'd like to welcome our new town clerk, Steve Harris. Oh, Steve, would you like to say a few words? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Just to say hello to everybody. I'm really grateful and really excited for the opportunity I've been given. I started work on Monday, so it's early days getting to know the team and obviously the councillors. Just very quickly, my background, I previously worked for Wiltshire Council for about 10 years in a variety of roles, including community engagement roles, and then I've spent the past 5 or 6 years in telecoms and DEFRA doing a range of, again, community engagement, contract management roles. So yeah, been very excited to get stuck in. I look forward to working with you all into the future.
Right. Thanks, Stu. As we do, of course. So, right. Just very quickly, there's another item. We have a service level agreement with the Nailsea District, so Community District Council. So they provide obviously community transport service around the north of North Somerset, and I think there's about 125 to 130 residents in Portishead who use the service. It's basically just a standing item that comes up. Effectively, they're meeting their SLA. The service is well used. And there will be a proposal at the next council meeting to provide the grant. I mean, there is an SLA, so the grants are actually in there really. They don't have to reapply. It's part of the SLA. As long as they meet the SLA, it kind of rolls forward. I think it's a 3-year rolling facility we agreed. But anyway, just to sort of signpost that. Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry about that. I don't know. Is that better? I'm just too far from the apologies. Yeah. An SLA, sorry, it's a service level agreement. So we have a service level agreement with Nailsea District Council. So we pay them a grant. I think it's around £10,000 a year, but I may be slightly wrong. And they provide community transport services to 130 people in Portishead. So, and we measure the number of journeys and the amount of value that's basically provided by the service. So okay, that's what that is. Yeah. Okay, public participation. So we have a 30-minute session. If any members of the public would like to make any comments or ask questions, please do so. There is a limit of 5 minutes a person, so that other people can have time. Now, can I ask if people want to speak, could they go over to the table that's slightly askew there and use the microphone there so that people online can hear? Yeah, and if anyone online would like to speak, could they raise their virtual hands as well? So, okay. We'll take the lady there. Would you like to go for it? Oh, of course, yes. Just Martin, can you? No, sorry. You do need to use the microphone. You press the button and it will go red. Okay, that means you're on the mic. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You reminded me of Donald Trump a little bit there with your facts and figures and saying you don't work in percentages or whatever. As an ex-maths teacher, his percentages worry me greatly or whatever. But the article in the North Somerset Times about the town council precept was keen to sort of promote that for a band D property, what the percentage increase would be. Can I just ask, first of all, what would the percentage increase be for the highest bands, F, G and H, because that definitely wasn't mentioned anywhere.
Do you answer that during the presentation, John? I think. Yeah.
It's not specifically mentioned during the presentation. The difference between a band D and a band F, for example, is that the tax charged in respect of each property is expressed in terms of ninths. A band D pays 9/9 of a standard rate.
Okay.
Whatever that may be.
Yeah.
A band E, I think that a figure is 11/9.
Okay.
Band F, 13/9, and so on. So everybody's charge goes up by the same percentages, although they're different amounts.
Okay, so we are talking double the amount getting on for by the band H or whatever.
Well, certainly a band H will be paying a small fortune. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I was somewhat aghast by the percentage increase since 2019, which you seem to think is totally irrelevant, but a 760 something percent increase since 2019 seemed absolutely outrageous to me. First of all, then, what I want to ask and say is, what is the point of Portishead residents accepting such a preposterous increase in order to control assets which we already pay for through North Somerset Council? I'm well aware of the fact that North Somerset don't spend the money here, but we are paying for that. And I'm well aware that there's plenty of residents in Portishead who are struggling to keep their household budgets out of the red. And for such a huge increase to be coming from North Somerset, which we are clearly being prepared for, and a ridiculous precept from the town council to add on top of it. What I don't understand is if we take this precept on, and yet North Somerset itself is going to be subsumed into the West of England Authority. How do we know in Portishead that the West of England Authority won't look at our jewel in the crown lake grounds and see it as something that they will put money into? And if we are paying this precept for these assets this year, there will be no going back from that. So what is the point of doing this now when the whole North Somerset arrangement is getting thrown out in favour of something else? Why don't we keep our powder dry until we say what the West of England Authority would have in mind for Portishead?
Okay, so good questions there. I guess probably like most, when I first got involved with the council, I assumed that most of our money that went to North Somerset was spent on things like maintaining the parks.
I'm well aware that that's not the case.
So that is not the case. But basically the decision was because North Somerset have no money whatsoever to spend on parks, players.
But will the West of England Authority? What proof do we have that won't happen?
It's not within their remit responsibilities. There are different tiers of local government. West of England Authority is going to be focusing much more on regional development, regional transport. They don't have any responsibilities for parks. I mean, it's way down.
Right.
No, they don't.
Okay, so you are categorically saying that that's not the case.
So it won't happen. They will have no interest in it.
I dare say they will have no interest, but are you actually saying that is not within their remit anywhere?
No.
Not between 1 and 100. It's not even on the list.
Yeah, go on. Roger will know more than me because he's gone. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Roger Whitfield. I sit on North Somerset Council.
Yeah.
So I have been involved in some discussions around WECA.
Yeah.
Yep. So the WECA, the West of England Combined Authority, isn't a council. It's a combined authority. It's a tier of government that sits above councils.
Yeah.
It makes regional decisions that cross boundaries. It doesn't do the day-to-day work of a council. So it won't be replacing North Somerset, won't be replacing Bristol, won't be replacing South Gloucester, and won't be replacing Bath and North East Somerset.
Okay.
It'll be a separate tier across that. So all those councils will continue to control all the things that they control and pay for all the things they control, with the exception of a couple of little things which may go across the whole region. So it's a regional government, not a local government, and that's why they would have absolutely no interest in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just one other thing from the North Somerset Times, which may or might not be right, but the quote here is that last summer we asked Portishead residents if they wanted Portishead Town Council to take on some local assets and services. A large majority said yes. I had quite a tussle on Facebook with you, Roger, because I answered yes on the front page because I didn't realise the implications of what was being said, because that was such a biased questionnaire. And I heard councillors talking to people at events, and the question what do you think of the lake grounds? Would you like improvements at the lake grounds? Oh, yes, yes. You know, would you like to see Portishead Town Council take that on? Oh, yes, yes, of course. But the thing that was missing in the discussion, of course, was the fact that, well, yes, but you're going to have to pay for it. Oh, well, okay, that's not too bad. But what was never said was, of course, you're already paying for it in your North Somerset council tax, and we are not going to get a reduction for paying for it through our town council precept. And so I think that statement there is actually not what the residents of Portishead thought they were voting for. And in my view, if you intend to go ahead with this precept, and I'm not stupid, I think it's going to happen, but I think you should have a referendum of the residents of Portishead, because the people who answered that particular questionnaire were actually being duped. I mean, no doubt about that.
Okay, well, we'll have to disagree on that one. You're entitled to your opinion, but I don't think that was the case. Yeah. But anyway, thank you.
Well, yeah.
So,
okay.
So
Sorry.
could I just take your name? Hello, Judy. Thank you. Yeah. The lady there. Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. We'll go for it.
Yeah.
So hello, I'm Marie Davis. I've lived in Portishead since '94, so that's 32 years, although my accent probably doesn't sound that way. So I am a posset through and through, I would suggest. I think for me, I would agree with the previous lady about the survey that was done last year. It's billed now as a consultation. It's changed its name, but it was a questionnaire. It was a survey, and for me, for that to be the reason that we are here today, looking at the precept, I think is a faulty mechanism. I will say that. I think for me, there's 3 items, and almost this public participation is coming the wrong way round for me, because I'm really keen to hear from John Davey the details of the precept and what's in and what's out. I did look at the website and I did look at the summary, the PDF, and it wasn't terribly clear to me.
Sure.
I think you referred to earlier that the 2 budgets don't bear resemblance. And when we look at the 26-27 budget, what we see is a huge rise. It's the last 2 lines. I can't remember the one above. I think it's resources or staffing or something like that. And then capital. And capital, I can remember, is 350,000. But the one line above that, can you remind me of what that is, John? Yes. But I think it was around 800,000. And for me, I read that was staffing. So there's 3 points that I'd really like to make. So if we are to take on the local precept, I'm not arguing with that. I think to have local control over local assets is something to be applauded. I am very worried about the due diligence that may or may not have been done in estimating those costs. And I would ask specifically whether staffing costs have been included in that precept money. For me, on the surface of it, it looks as if we've just taken the money we offer in local precept and just accepted that as the money. But we are now saying we need loads of staff, maybe, and capital to actually fulfil the needs of a local precept. So I don't get that, I'll be honest.
We'll explain that later, but just to summarise, yes, we are doing a lot of due diligence. We're going to be doing more due diligence, and obviously the precept is a mix of staff to manage and do various things, and and spending on physical assets to replace play equipment or whatever it might be. So it's a mix. But John will explain that later on. Okay.
And I think that's an issue for me. I come from the public sector, and I'm used to having papers 7 days in advance to the public, so they can have that detail of the plans and the due diligence, so they can ask intelligent questions to inform the decision. That the PDF, although it gives figures. For me, it doesn't give the
Okay,
detail.
well, we'll go through that later on anyway. But so, yeah.
The second item for me really is about the governance.
Mm.
Whereas I can see that the central government has got a remit in controlling spending, in that you need special permissions if council tax goes above, I think it's 4.8, 4.9%.
Yeah.
I am really worried that the local precept doesn't have that control. So in essence, we are saying this year that the money for a Band D is going up by 4.8% approximately, that maximum amount. But next year, the councillor could decide that they want to double it or triple it or quadruple it or add, make it £1,000. There doesn't seem to be any control about that. And the only comment that was given on the Facebook page when that discussion was happening was, well, you can vote us out in a couple of years' time. For me, that's not an acceptable response. So for me, it's due diligence, it's the governance, and it's also about the decisions on where this is being spent. So again, in the discussions on the Facebook, there was conversations about building a new cafe on the lake grounds. There were various things about parts and investments that we want to make. And I'd ask again, where are those decisions going to be made? Because it goes back to the governance and involving the Portishead people in those decisions. People are finding it really difficult. There is a cost of living crisis out there. They can't find, I mean, I'm using the amount for a Band D, but, relatively, if it's a Band A or a Band H, they can't find hundreds of pounds extra locally and then find hundreds of pounds extra for North Somerset. And we don't even know what WECA's going to bring. So for me, the decision making when those things are happening it doesn't seem to be going in the right timeline.
Let me just explain it very briefly. So today is about an overall budget for the whole of the devolution package. But obviously, as we sort of do projects, so there's a potential project to, provide a new cafe building down in the lake grounds. But obviously, that would have its own governance. There'll be a project. We've already done some work on it, but there'll be a costing, a tender, a consultation with residents about what they want, and then that will come through, and we have regular.
But where's that been discussed?
Well, it'll be discussed formally. The consultation will be across Portishead, sorry, but obviously formally that we have various council meetings on a monthly basis where they come here for decisions, and residents are welcome to attend that, or they can come in and discuss with us at any time particular issues. So there'll be a process basically where many places where people can input into the decision making process.
I would suggest that the residents need to drive it, not actually just comment on it.
Well, we'd be very glad.
So those are
very glad to work with.
Those are my concerns. The other thing is about the last thing that I would just like to say is about the communication. The only reason that I understood that the precept was going to be discussed today was because I picked up a North Somerset Times from Sainsbury's yesterday and saw the article. Okay. I don't believe people know this across Portishead. I don't think it's been publicised enough. And, I've said that on the Facebook posts previously. Yeah. I think it will come to a shock. It will come as a shock to them in April when you send out the bills.
Sure. Do you mind? We're over time now, and other people might want to speak, but please do. Thank you for your points, and please do come and speak to us again at any time. So very, very welcome. Yeah.
I think Roger wants to come back.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Did you want to say something, Caritas? No? Okay. All right. So you are Marie Davis, I think, me. So thank you, Marie. Thank you very much. Yeah. I think there's someone online. Yeah. Yeah, we'll move to someone online, please. Yes, Susan. Sue, you're on.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to come up with a picture of me, but it didn't want to do that. Sorry about that. Right, okay. I was really going to give you an update of some of the some of the casework that I've had, which is very brief, but also as you've been talking about local devolution, I did ask a couple of questions relating to Portishead. When we did have our meeting at Weston, which I thought people might be interested in. So I'll deal with those first, and then I will give you very briefly, some of the some of the things that people have contacted me about.
Sorry, is this related to the budget discussion? And should we do this late?
Yes, it is in a sense, because
sorry, so can we do this later on? Because Sue is
okay, that's fine.
North Somerset District Council, if we can cover it under the district councillor item, because I think there may be some other members.
Okay.
Thank you, Sue. Maybe some other members of the public. Caritas, did you want to speak? Or go on then. If it's about devolution, we'll do it. Yeah. No, but it's just if it's germane to the discussion here, if it's brief, it's fine. But yeah. Caritas Giles
was also talking about devolution as well.
Okay, well, sorry.
I'm happy for Sue to go before.
Go on then, Sue. Carry on. Yeah. So I thought you were going on another topic, so but carry on. Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. In the meeting that we had in Weston, I asked two questions. The first one was about special expenses, which people will have seen on the paperwork that's obviously come from North Somerset. That there are four towns. We all get charged special expenses for additional things to be done.
So Sue, those will be removed. They will no longer exist.
Yeah. But yes, and so they will not be collected. So so you are correct there. The other one is talking about land that has not been registered, because of course sometimes in the past, when a developer has been building something and they had not transferred to North Somerset some of the little tiny bits of land that are that they didn't transfer to North Somerset. Now those little bits of land are not registered. So in other words, what's happening, which is what will happen here, is that old land cannot be transferred to the town council, because North Somerset don't own that land. It's odd little bits. It's not a huge amount. So in other words, so that's really why I wanted to just say that yes, the town council want to transfer certain amount of bits and pieces and land and everything else to the town council, but where North Somerset do not own the land, and what they will do is just cutting the grass, that will be the same for the town council.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So our team in the office has been working with North Somerset. So we've got maps of Portishead where all the pieces of land are they have been mapped actually. We'll be publishing those in due course, because then residents can then see what we are looking after and what we're not. So
I thought I would just bring that up for you.
Brilliant. All right, thanks, Sue. Thanks, Caritas.
Okay,
yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to offer some praise to the town council for what they've done in actively consulting with people. But I will have the proviso that lots of people will say, oh, we are the voice of Portishead. Nobody is the voice of Portishead. Nobody can sit up here and say that residents think this or residents think that. The only time we ever have that is at an election. So nobody should say that. I don't represent the voice of Portishead. Nobody in this room does. But I am really commend the town council for having those conversations and having those conversations with people And for those who feel they might have been hoodwinked, okay. But I know lots of people who didn't feel like they were being hoodwinked and were having a very open conversation about that. The decisions you to make tonight are about what sort of town we want. And you can talk about the wider North Somerset issue, and you can talk about council taxes, but the fact is we are in the country in crisis. We are in a crisis of funding, and it is down to political parties over decades promising the world to people and saying you can have your cake and eat it too, and you'd never have to pay for it. And that's what's led us to where we are tonight. So it's what sort of town you want. Do you want a town when the swings in the local park get broken, they stay broken? Do you want a town when, you know, there are broken benches and seats in the lake ground, they stay broken? That's what will happen. Yes, you may think you pay for those things at North Somerset Council. You don't. Unitary authorities are now just adult and child social care providers. That is what they are. They don't have money for anything else. And whether you think it's incompetence of North Somerset Council or whether you think it's lack of government funding, the answers are relevant. If you don't take this decision tonight, you run the risk of those parks running down, those services that we all love and cherish going. And I commend your bravery for actually going up there and saying that, because most politicians will go out and promise the world and say you never have to pay a penny for it. At least you're saying we can do better, we can maintain things, but there's a cost. And what I would say as well is that I agree with the person there that was talking about more public engagement. I've got to say, this has got to bring the town with us. So I would encourage you to do more. I would encourage working group. I would encourage participatory democracy to actually get more public involvement. And I'd be happy to help with that. So I'm totally on board with that. But one risk we also risk as well is that North Somerset Council is broke. There is a risk it could go what is technically called what is technically bankruptcy. So what this town council is doing tonight could effectively save some of those resources that we are having. Because if they don't take this action tonight, government auditors could sell those resources off. You may shake your head, but it's true. They could sell those resources off. So you won't have a choice whether to fund them or not, because they won't be there. They'll be sold to cover debt. They won't if the town council owns it. North Somerset can't because the town council will own it. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say. And thank you for your bravery.
Thank you very much, Caritas. Yeah, the lady there, so yeah, Caritas Charles.
Hello, I'm Linda Bowen. I'm not the voice of Portishead. I'm just somebody who turned up at a meeting and got excited by the discussion that you've been having. My background is I have been a councillor when I've been living in another place, and I have been a council officer. So I'm sorry, I don't know the gentleman's name down there, but I just want to reiterate what he's just said as well. It's a sad story at the moment for local authorities, be that North Somerset Council or any council, and the combined authority is not going to be the knight on the white charger coming and rescuing. It's about using more resources in a more imaginative way. For my background, I was actually one of the spenders, the adult social care people, and it's just as we grow older, the councils are finding themselves with 20% more expenses year on year. Having worked in adult social care, I can tell you for sure, the only things that are being provided are statutory services, things that by law must be provided. Everything else goes. And as councils focus down, they are looking for people like Portishead Town Council to pick up the slack and go. And believe you me, to keep it going is a jolly sight easier than to actually start something, maintain something that, you know, you've got to unmothball. It's absolutely imperative. So I am going to do exactly what the previous speaker said, and I am going to commend you for having the discussion. I was involved in the consultation. I certainly didn't feel bamboozled by what was on the front page. It was very clear that there was going to be a cost. And if I remember rightly, but my memory isn't as good these days as it was, there were figures there as well. So, you know, people were prepared. And I looked at it and I thought, thank goodness for that. It's actually giving some green space, some community facilities for the town. And if that means that we've all got to chip in a bit, it didn't sound an awful lot to me, given the enjoyment that we all get from beautiful lake grounds. I was there this afternoon. Great. The Lido Cafe run by volunteers. What are the options for the other cafe? But wouldn't it be nice to have one cafe at one end and another one at the other, and be able to walk between the two? There's so much that you can do, and it doesn't all have to be centred. And I'm sure the council don't expect it to be all vested forevermore in the council, because there are other bodies, committees or vehicles that can manage these as separate entities. And for goodness sake, we've all got time on our hands because we're all sat here in a council meeting. If we've got time, let's put it to good use and do some volunteering as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing what you're doing, and thank you for doing it at a good price. I'm supportive of the precept.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it. Okay. Paul, so the last one, I think we're at 30 minutes. Go on, you come along, Paul, and then we'll go to the comment online. Yeah, so.
I don't intend to speak for long, but as most will know, I'm always shocked at the money that Portishead Town Council demand from the public to pay for their projects and their staffing. And of course, this year is no different. The precept for a Band D property is going to rise by a massive £83.43 per household. And as we all know, this is on top of the planned increases from North Somerset, the police, the fire brigade. And Paul, you tried to belittle this point, but when you took over in 2019, the precept for a Band D property was £26. I do work in percentages. That's a massive percentage rise. My good friend, the late Ken Smith, said that if you got in, that you would double the precept. People in this room openly mocked Ken, openly taunted him and told him he was being ridiculous. Not even Ken could have predicted a 7.5-fold rise. Thankfully, I probably can afford the full increase, and it probably won't cause me too much financial difficulty. However, not everybody in Portishead's in that position. I know what it's like to struggle for £1 or £2. I remember working 3 jobs to pay the bills, to scrape by to the end of the month, and there are people in Portishead who do that today. I remember the hardship that family life involved. We had a new mortgage, we had the car. I vividly remember lying awake at night, worrying, should I pay the electric bill or should I pay the gas bill first? Worrying if I was able to get an extra shift or 2 at work, maybe to pay the water bill. Or if I could fit in a shift driving an HGV lorry throughout the night just to get some money for food. And of course the council tax would soon be due. I don't know if any of you have ever had to worry about finding a couple of pounds for a school trip or making do with scraps to eat until payday. But I'm quite sure there are people in this town who have those worries now. I urge you to consider those people when you vote tonight. It's not just £83. It's food on children's tables. And there's people in Portishead who are going to struggle to do that even more.
Okay, thank you. We're just going to take a comment online. We'll do the council discussion in a minute. Bob.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, I totally understand your point. Just to let you know, my wage is £13.70 an hour. So I'm on virtually minimum wage. And yes, it will be hard for me, but we'll cope. Thank you.
Yeah,
you might cope, but there may well be people in Portishead who won't.
Yes, thanks, Paul. Very, very well made points. Thank you. Okay, we're going to take a comment there, and then we're out of time for public participation, so we're going to move on. So we've got a comment online, and then we'll finish it. So, yeah.
Just to acknowledge the comment online from Laura Porter that was responding to an earlier point raised and has provided a link and said the newly published culture policy might suggest they would have some interest in our access to leisure spaces.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for that, Laura. Good point. Right. We're going to move on. As I said, there's plenty of opportunity for further discussion. It's a huge project and we really want to work with people, as I said. We'll move on. We just got to do the minutes of the previous meeting. Has anyone got any issues with those, or can we just move to the vote to accept them? Rog proposes, Mike second, and all in favour? Okay. All right. So I'll sign those later, Steve. We just have to formally appoint you. So you still have a chance to walk out of the room now at this point if you want. So it's to confirm the recommendation of the recruitment panel and to appoint Stephen Harris as the Portishead Town Clerk. Recommendation that Stephen Harris be appointed as Town Clerk and Proper Officer on terms agreed, and you're not allowed to vote. Right, would someone like to propose that? David. And Mike is seconded, and all those in favour? Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're now moving to the budget presentation. So John is going to take us through some detail. So thank you in advance for all the work that you've done. Over to you. You're going over there, right? Yeah.
Right, I hope I can put some of your minds at rest on at least some of the points. Right. Okay, can we go to slideshow presentation? It makes the it's a bit low.
You need to get a bit nearer the mic, John. Yeah.
Sorry. Right. Yeah, can we have the, that's it, thank you. Right, that's what I'm going to talk about now. A quick look at the current financial year. A look at some of the plans which we have as a council which do not depend upon devolution. Then devolution itself. The whole background to the budgeting process, the assumptions, the risks and opportunities that we face. The budget itself, the impact on the precept, and some comparisons with other councils. There's a fairly complicated story to tell, so I'd appreciate it if you save any questions, at least not during the presentation. In addition, all of the slides will be included in the minutes of this meeting, and there are some paper copies around somewhere if you want to get hold of them now. Okay, next slide, please. Right, what's happened this year? First of all, the project on upgrading the ambience of the halls has been completed, and I'll talk about that in a moment. The main focus this year has been on repairs to play areas and play equipment and other aspects of safety, including some work done at the lake grounds. And we have started reorganising the staff to cope with the impact of devolution. We have a new asset officer. We are strengthening our customer service team, and we have a new town clerk, as you see. Next slide, please. Then on specifically financial items, CIL receipts continue to be low because there are very few private developments going on in the town. The Portishead Economic Fund was included in our budget for this year, but in fact control of that has been retained by North Somerset. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's a fund of £150,000 available to support small businesses in Portishead. It has no effect on our budget because it'd just be a case of money coming in and then being paid out. It's entirely neutral. We continue to support local community groups, up to 134,000 so far this year. And we have the NSC funding, North Somerset Council funding crisis to cope with. In this year's budget, we set up a reserve of £250,000 to cope with the setup costs, about which there will be more later. It now looks as though, because progress has been a bit slower than we anticipated, that we will only be spending 150 this year and 100 next year. But the overall financial message for this year is that what I like to think of as business as usual costs will be stable. They will not be increasing beyond budget limitations. Next slide, please. Right, I know the print's a bit small here, but I'll have to do our best. The key point is the bit which is right down the bottom and unfortunately cut off by the projection system. We budgeted for a small deficit of £17,000 this year. It now looks as though we are going to show a surplus of around £51,000 this year. I won't go through those numbers in detail because there are just too many of them. But if you go to the next slide, please. That explains the key changes which have taken place during the year, which will affect results for this year. The hall income has been reduced because there have been some intermittent closures to cope with the repair works on the halls. The economic fund has dropped out of our income and it's also dropped out of our expenses. Payroll costs have increased more than we expected because of the national settlement, a need for agency staff and the reorganisation. Ordinary building costs have been kept under control, saving 33,000, not least because of the Wyndham Way toilets being closed. So the halls project itself, have I got that the right way around? Yes, includes £100,000 this year, which we expected to be spent in 24-25 at the time we did the budget, but it got delayed into this year. Ordinary building maintenance, town maintenance, looks better than budget, not because the work's not being done, but because, again, because of delays with North Somerset Council, it's been deferred until 26-27, but it will happen. Economic development is the disappearance of the Portishead Economic Fund. And the bottom line, not quite but one, devolution setup costs, 61,000 less than expected. Well, that's actually a £100,000 reduction in the £250,000 that I referred to a moment ago, offset by starting to take on extra staff to cope with the workload, and in addition, provision for software, additional customer service software to help us maintain better contacts with people dealing with the council. So overall, there have been one or two big changes, but most of those cancel each other out, and all the small savings add up to an improvement. Next slide, please. Hooray! Right. This is basically a summary of where our money comes from. The big red splodge is the precept. That's 90-something% of all our income is the precept. We have very little else. The green stripe up in the top corner represents the income from renting out the halls, and the rest are really insignificant. They're basically bank interest and such like things. Next slide, please. This is where the money goes. The dark red patch is payroll, and the two which really matter are the purple patch on the left-hand side, which is, if I can remember, the new projects that we are trying to run. Sorry, I've got that the wrong way around. The colours are not quite what I expected them to be in this. The purple patch is grants to support community organisations. The grey one in the top left is the effect of North Somerset devolution so far. The large green one at the bottom is spend on the halls project. Right. Next slide, please. Right. This is a summary of the organisations that have been benefiting from our spend on grants for community organisations. The main ones are the Youth Centre, the Christmas Lights Organisation, Nailsian District Transport and the Citizens Advice. And then there are a large number of other groups, all run by volunteers who have received varying sums up to about £5,000. Oh, that includes the carnival at 7,000 something, which I can't read from here. Okay. Anyway, we intend to continue that policy of supporting local organisations. Next slide, please. We know that during the year we have managed to turn a deficit into a surplus, or we expect to, at least. We need to also consider what our final position is likely to be at the end of March 26. That's best expressed in terms of how good is the general reserve. We expect to have 653,000 in general reserve at the end of the year. There are rules which we need to follow about how much general reserves we should have. And the normal benchmark for the absolute minimum is 3 months spend. It looks as though we are going to need 376,000 to satisfy that benchmark. That means we have 277,000 of reserves, which strictly speaking are more than the minimum we need to hold. And that's an important point because it's being used to keep the precept down. Right, next slide, please. The halls. The project on the halls, it was one of the largest single projects that this council has ever undertaken. Next slide, please. The work that was done involved fire detection, fire prevention, fire doors, emergency lighting, improving ventilation and heating systems, upgrading the toilets, and even repairing the flood in the bottom of the lift shaft here. We undertook a lot of competitive tenders for project management and for the actual works themselves. And we finished up after that tender process with an authorised cost of 412,000. During the process of putting all this work in place, we discovered further economies. So we actually spent 384,000. This project has come in under budget by 28,000. It's a miracle for a local authority project. There is one small piece of work which still needs to be done, which is repairing the drains at Redcliffe Bay Hall. That cost is included in those numbers. There were some low priority works which are needed at the 3 halls. They are things like repointing the brickwork and so on. These will be deferred and managed in-house over a 5-year period. Next slide, please. Right. We do have some future plans for the halls. Because we spent 400,000 on the repairs to the halls, we would have had to spend 80,000 in VAT, plus all the VAT on the low priority repairs. We didn't want to do that. And the only way around it was to register the halls for VAT themselves. That means adding VAT to hall hire charges. And that started on the 1st of January 25. This enabled us to recover something of the order of £100,000 of VAT on the costs. We know that that will increase the fees we have to charge, and those fee increases are being phased in over a 2-year period to reduce hardship for volunteer organisations. We are also bringing in a new booking system for the halls with effect from January this year, which should be far more efficient, much less paperwork, and enable the general public to make bookings directly online. Generally speaking, that should be a massive improvement. I can do it with my haircuts, even though I don't need many of them, so I don't see why we can't do it with the halls. Right, next slide, please. Right. I did mention that we had some ideas about what things needed doing, quite apart from devolution. First of these, we get criticism sometimes because the town looks scruffy. So we are planning to upgrade the town orderly service. There will be the safety and footway improvements at the Marina and Bottolinos, deferred from 25-26. Blacknall Lighthouse has attached a great deal of support, and we've sent money aside for that to support community ownership. There will be traffic calming measures at Highdown and Gordano schools. We don't want children involved in road accidents. We are investigating support for local shuttle bus services. And possibly one of the most important, we will be spending money on refreshing the neighbourhood plan and fighting what we consider to be misplaced housing development proposals as recently announced. We're not against the housing as such, but it's in the wrong place, of the wrong type, the wrong amount, and so on. Okay, next slide, please. All right, this is an attempt to show you what the precept would look like if devolution did not come along. We have the forecast, the budget, the net change between the two. The budget for next year, that is. And we are looking at the way the precept might change as a result. We know that our core business as usual costs will have to go up by about 54,000 because of inflation, which we're assuming at 4%, and some delayed spending. The halls repair projects, which cost 268,000 this year, will drop out. Projects carried over from last year, sorry, from this year to next year, will move about £85,000 of extra costs. Projects planned, the new Portishead Town Council projects planned for next year will add 116,000 to our cost base. But against that, we can deduct the normal income we get, mainly from the halls and also from back interest and such like things. And that leaves us with the curious situation that what we need to raise money for Portishead Town Council activities falls from 1,245,000 to 1,211,000. In other words, if there were no devolution, we would not need to increase the precept. And that is an important point, and I'll come back to that later. Okay, next slide, please. North Somerset crisis, yes, where are we now? Paul has mentioned to some of the key points already, but next slide, please. I would just go over some of them for you. North Somerset Council is still in financial trouble and will be for the foreseeable future. Their medium-term financial plan, published in October last year, showed they expected total deficits of £45 million over the next 4 years, 26 million of it next year. They can't raise council tax beyond 5% cap without special permission. They are asking for help from town councils. They have even asked for a public donations appeal. And they have been hit by steady reductions in government funding and some fairly heavyweight recent further reductions. They have to cut their costs. They have to raise new income. They have to deliver their statutory obligations. And that leaves a big question mark over their non-statutory services. These can either be reduced or abandoned or maybe charged for, or they can be handed over to town and parish councils. Next slide, please. This is where we have had a lot of discussions within the council. We can see real benefits from the transfers. It gives us an opportunity to exercise local control, to involve the community, to get services which are actually tailored to the needs we have, and to make potential improvements and to seek lower costs. All of these are good things. We have to follow some restrictions, though. We have to act what we believe to be in the best interests of Portishead residents as a whole. We need a fair settlement between ourselves and North Somerset. Transfers of assets between councils need to be neutral in cost. We're not going to pay for the lake grounds. We will not support existing contracts that are poor value or not effective. Assets such as the lake grounds are held for the community. North Somerset is just the latest custodian. They should not be making a profit out of them. And finally, our approach has to be realistic. We should not be taking on more than we can actually handle. Next slide, please. So we did hold a consultation last summer. I know it's expressed criticism of it, but not everyone. The results I'll show you on the next 2 slides, but residents did express concerns about governance, financial transparency, and our expertise and our ability to cope with the workload. And we will address those concerns, but they're not part of the budget as such. Next slide, please. Right, this is the profile of the overall support for devolution arising from that consultation for the people who bothered to answer. 80% of those who responded either agreed or strongly agreed with our proposals. 11%, I think it's 11, I can't read it from here, were undecided. Only 8% disagreed or strongly disagreed. That's a pretty overwhelming margin of support. And we did ask people what they thought our priorities should be. Next slide, please. Again, the print's a bit small, but it will all be made available. The top 3 are looking after the lake grounds, parks and open spaces, and maintaining community events, particularly things like the carnival, Christmas lights, and so on. The 3 after that are support for community organisations, controlling litter, dog bins and such like things, and looking after play areas. The last 3 are meeting places, public libraries, and public toilets. And the last one, on the extreme right-hand side, is support for cutting costs at the expense of everything else. It did not get a lot of support. So, next slide, please. Let's look at the progress so far. We have got agreement in principle. It's not yet legally binding, but we expect it to be made so during the next couple of months. For the first round of assets and services to be transferred to the Town Council with effect from the 1st of April this year. That includes the lake grounds, including all its car parks and amenities, the esplanade and the seawall, woodlands and open spaces at Battery Point, Kilkenny Fields, Eastwood, the golf course, Merlin Park, and the grounds maintenance service contract, currently run by Glendale. We have not been able to get tenders in place for this year. There's too much work involved, and therefore we will in fact be managing the Portishead share of the existing North Somerset arrangements. For 27-28, well, we'll be going out to tender next year, and we will in fact may find that North Somerset themselves choose to bid for the work. However, it will be on our terms. We may well demand higher standards. There is one point of caution though, because we're a much smaller organisation than North Somerset, we won't necessarily have the same economies of scale. Next slide, please, because there's even more to come. We will also take over litter and dog bin maintenance, the 14 play areas that North Somerset now control, Beach Hill allotments, and something like 250 small pieces of land, grass verges and the like, which are all individually subject to legal process to transfer title. And one big one, which is if conditions are right, we will take over Somerset Hall. Somerset Hall is something we are investigating very carefully. It is now an old building. It has some fairly obvious faults. Next slide, please. We have commissioned a detailed survey into the condition of Somerset Hall. We have also commissioned a survey to consider remodelling the inside of the building, getting better disabled access, updating the bar and catering facilities, increasing capacity for large events, and that means improving fire escapes, and looking at the prospects for using it to raise future income for the council. That's a lot of work. We will be seeking grants, and most importantly, we will be working with community organisations during the process. We know that many of our organisations have got a keen interest in seeing improvements there. Okay, next slide, please. So what are we going to do next year? What are our first priorities? Well, the first one is to establish a community group to help us with the lake grounds. We want to restore the lake to its proper condition. A lady raised a question of what was the capital expenditure that was referred to in the one-page summary that was sent out. Well, that basically is cleaning up the lake. We have got informal estimates so far that actually cleaning the lake would cost about £150,000, and it will cost a further £200,000 to get waste disposal rights, which is a bit bloody ridiculous, but there you are. We will be seeking grants to support that money, and we've budgeted on the assumption that we will get at least £100,000 worth of grants to support cleaning up the lake. We will be letting the tenders for new contracts for grounds maintenance, and we will be assessing the overall workload in lots of areas. We will be investigating, put my false teeth back in, investigating all the problem areas in detail. We will be looking particularly closely at affordability and value for money. We may decide to take some of the grounds maintenance work in-house with a team of employed rangers. We will investigate an improved Lake Grounds Cafe building. There are some proposals around which are not yet in a fit state for publication, and we will be looking at alternative uses for the derelict Wyndham Way toilets. Next slide, please. That's a lot of extra work, and we're going to need new resources to take on. We have taken on a new asset officer, a lady called Lucy. Some of you may have met her. We have engaged the services of an experienced negotiator in dealing with North Somerset. This is a gentleman who has had considerable experience in working with devolution issues in other councils. We've engaged a new clerk. We have strengthened the customer service team. We have got budget provision for additional administration staff to help with the increased workload. We have commissioned lawyers to help us with all aspects of devolution, and some of them are legally complex, particularly Somerset Hall. We may need more office space. We may even need a depot if we're going to have a team of rangers with their own equipment. Next slide, please. So what are the costs going to be? Well, there are two sorts of costs really. One-off investment costs, and that's expenditure which we need to incur to bring any assets transferred to us up to the right level, the standard that we want. That includes cleaning the lake, other exploratory work, and it may well include restoration of Somerset Hall to a proper level, and enhancement of the lake grounds to make it more suitable as a venue for events to generate income for the town. All investment will be subject to a process for us in which we will look for grants to support the cost. Grants may not always be available to us because we're a local authority. It is possible that we may have to borrow money from the Debt Management Office, or what used to be called the Public Works Loan Board. However, we have not made any decisions to do so, and they're certainly not going to happen in the budget year. It is merely a possibility. Next slide, please. The other kind of cost are the ongoing operating costs. We've taken advice on what to expect here. We know what North Somerset have been spending. We can guess what they should have been spending if they hadn't been short of money. These costs will recur every year and in future will be part of our business as usual cost base. If we do take on any loans, then loan repayments and interest will form part of that business as usual cost base. There's a couple of lines there about section 106, which are on the wrong slide. My apologies for that. But we expect to have about approximately £600,000 of section 106 funds transferred to this council. They will be used to support investment spend, and we expect to use them up over a 6-year period. Next slide. All right. This is where you get to the hard numbers. It's all right, it's all on paper. These are not in any particular order of importance, but firstly, the lake grounds and the sea wall, we're expecting to spend 365,000. 350 of that is cleaning the lake, less 100 for a grant that we hope to receive, plus ordinary running costs. We will be spending money on woodlands. The open space management refers to the share of the existing North Somerset Council contract, and also the litter and dog bins, which are currently looked after by North Somerset, but that's 200,000 between them. The 14 play areas are expected to cost us around 178,000. Every one of those play areas has to be inspected every week, and the wear and tear on equipment, which is not cheap, is rather high. We have allowed for 75,000 for the initial work on Somerset Hall, 15 for public toilets. We will be taking over the Beach Hill allotments. Improved customer service will cost us over £100,000 a year. And asset management, which is office staff, possible office accommodation, software, and maybe a depot for the Rangers, is expected to cost us around 113,000 a year. We have allowed, because there are so many uncertainties in these numbers, £100,000 as a contingency allowance. That takes us to a spend of 1.2 million. We will still have some setup costs next year, the residue of the £250,000 that I referred to last year. So our total costs in respect of devolution next year are going to be a tad over 1.3 million against a spend of 188,000 that we expect to spend this year. That's an increase of 1.1 million. Next slide, please. Right. What we have now is that figure expressed in terms of the cost of increased precept for a Band D property. I beg your pardon. That's the 1.1 million change. I've got ahead of myself. That's the 1.1 million extra spend with the contingency reserve spread over the other costs to keep it simple and expressed in monetary order of importance. And you can see that the lake grounds, parks and open spaces and play areas are well and truly up the top. And that does reflect the relative importance that was one of the results of the consultation last year. At the bottom, you'll see setup costs is actually in red. It's a saving because we're expecting those to tail off during the year. 1.1 million. Next slide, please. This is a slide that shows the impact on the precept. The lake grounds will cost £38.11 per Band D property per year. I'm not going to work my way down through all the numbers, but the total is £111 per Band D property per year. less the saving from the reduced setup costs, brings us to £106.48 per Band D property per year. That is not the end of the story. We have, sorry. I now turn, bear that £106 in mind, but I'll now turn to the rules we have to follow when we're preparing a budget. Next slide. We have to make some assumptions. Firstly, I'm assuming that there's no new legislation to follow. No significant population growth, no significant change in the number of Band D properties, no recovery in CIL receipts. We will have the increased hall hires, business as usual costs, excluding devolution, that is, will have to be kept stable. Next slide. I'm assuming inflation of 4%. Well, at November, CPI was showing an increase of 3.2%. Today's announcement for December CPI was 3.4%. 4% is a judgment call. Future inflation is largely determined by factors totally outside our control, and not the least of them is Donald Trump. Pay rates, of course, are outside our control, and they're set in national negotiations. And we're assuming that we'll get 3% income on bank deposits. It's a fairly cautious assumption. Next slide, please. The budget has to reflect the financial consequences of delivering our statutory obligations, what we have believed to be the best available mix of discretionary services, and of course it has to be politically acceptable. That's a very subjective call, that one. The budget has to comply with statutory financial requirements. It has to be balanced in the short to medium term, and I've always taken that to mean over the life of a 4-year council administration. We have to avoid Section 114 notices. For those of you who may not know, Section 114 notice is an admission that you're going bankrupt. And it means that the heavy mob come in from the Treasury. Reserves have to be stable, sufficient, and not excessive. Generally in the range 3 to 6 months spend. And if we do want to use reserves below that level, well, we need to have a plan for what we do when the reserves are all used up. And last but not least, we need to have sufficient cash to represent our reserves and to pay the bills. Next slide, please. We also have council financial policies to follow. We are adamant that we will provide value for money. We will keep the precept as low as possible. We will comply with recommended levels of reserves. We will seek all the grants we can get. We will support but not duplicate the work of voluntary organisations. We will monitor spend regularly. We will review our forecasts, and we will comply with all statutory requirements. That makes the budget setting process a little difficult because there are lots of shortcuts I would like to take, but I'm not allowed to. Next slide, please. All budgets are guesses, if you like, about the future. The future is always uncertain. There are always risks, and some of them are listed up there. The first one, of course, is just how far is North Somerset devolution going to go? We don't know. A side effect, of course, is that having a larger cost base means that we need higher reserves if we follow the 3-month rule. One of the buildings that doesn't get much attention, but for which we are responsible, is the youth centre building. That's getting old. Lower interest rates, lower risk. Inflation forecasts may be too optimistic. Global factors are always a risk. Wars in the Ukraine, the Middle East, and Donald Trump do not help. Next slide, please. there are things that might go our way. Getting grants, looking for cost savings, efficiency gains, value for money exercises, reviewing our investment policy so that we can increase our investment income without compromising the security of our investments, using Section 106 and CAL money wherever we can get hold of it, and working with voluntary organisations where they can take a financial burden off us. Next slide, please. Right, general reserves, our policy. We have to follow the guidance. We will try to maintain at least 3 months spend in general reserves. We will not normally permit general reserves to exceed 6 months expenditure. And we do have earmarked reserves, money set aside for specific purposes. Some of those purposes will be statutorily defined, as for example, the use of Section 106 and CIL money. Others are at the discretion of this council. They will all be controlled. They are not, in fact, very large in our case. Next slide, please. Right. This is a slide we saw before, which shows that we do not need to increase the precept for our own business as usual and Portishead initiatives. That's our start point for determining the precept for 26-27. Next slide. The top line of this slide, the net spend on PTC activities with its saving of £3.27, is the baseline. We then have to add on the effect of devolution. We expect to make savings of £50,000 on setup costs. We know that new activities are going to cost us 1.2 something million. We know that we are going to do our best to get income of 130,000, which is 100,000 of grants that I've talked about for the lake grounds, plus 33,000 of rental income from the various sports clubs on the lake ground. That's our 1.1 million of extra cost, and that will cost us £106.48 per Band D property. However, I did mention some time ago that we will have surplus reserves at the end of this year. That enables us to incur a deficit in the budget year. We intend to move from a surplus of 51,000 as the operating result this year to a deficit of 152,000 next year. That's a turnaround of 200,000, which uses up our surplus reserves rather nicely, as you will see. That enables us to reduce the precept requirement by £19.42 per BND household per year. Finally, there's a small adjustment because we've in fact got a few more houses in Portishead. The tax base has increased as a result of rating revaluations and private household developments. That effectively reduces the precept by 37p per household per year. And it's the net of those, the saving from Portishead, the extra cost of devolution, the use of reserves, and the small number of extra properties that altogether bring the total increase down to 83.43. Next slide, please. That is what the budget for next year looks like, and that was circulated with the agenda papers. I'm sorry, but the projection seems to have cut off the extreme top and the extreme bottom. The left-hand column is the forecast for this year. The right-hand column is the budget for next year, and the bottom line that you can't see is a surplus of 51 and the deficit of 152. I'm not going to go through all those numbers in detail, but next slide, if I've got this right, those are the significant changes. Again, I'm sorry, the bottom bit, we should show a deficit of 152,000 is somewhat obscured. But what is happening is that we have to have a significant increase in the precept. We hope to get some money out of devolution, North Somerset devolution grants and rental income. We hope we can maintain payroll altogether fairly stable. There will be delayed town maintenance spend of 92,000. The neighbourhood plan will incur extra cost of 24,000, and that includes fighting the appeal against housing developments. The buildings work, the halls project of 268,000 just drops out because it's going to be substantially complete. Our new projects add 100,000. North Somerset devolution costs add 1.3 million. Less the grants, of course. Setup costs, there will be savings, and there's some miscellaneous bits and pieces. The net change is the 203,000 that takes us from 51 to the good to 152 deficit. Right, next slide, please. This is where we expect the money will come from. Again, the big red slice is the precept. The blue sector is income arising from devolution, including grants. The green one is halls income. Total income is 2,587,000. And the next slide, the red one is payroll. It looks a bit orangey brown to me. I hope that's not my eyes. But the one that matters is the grey bit. And that is all the spend that's associated with North Somerset devolution. That makes it clear that the whole exercise is effectively doubling the size of this council. That's why we need the extra staff. It's a massive enlargement, and it's not something that a situation that we've been in since the days of Woodspring Council, or before Portishead Urban District Council, I think. There's another way of looking at these by putting the two sets of expenditure side by side. Next slide, please. You've got some green bars and red bars. The green is this year, 25-26. The red bars are next year, 26-27. On the left-hand side, you've got payroll, small increase. There are a couple of small items and then a green bar on its own, which is the halls project. It has no red equivalent. But what matters is the red bar, the two red bars on the extreme right. The main devolution expenditure, which dwarfs everything else, and the cost of restoring the lake grounds, or 350,000 of it. It is a dramatic change. There's no point in trying to hide it. Next slide, please. Will we have enough reserves to cope? Well, we expect to finish this year with 653. We expect to finish next year with 623. But because the cost base has gone up, we need to maintain more reserves. And minimums we can afford is 376 this year, which rises to 597 at the end of the year. The surplus reserves, which we're carrying at the moment, 277,000, have just about disappeared, and we are likely to finish up with surplus reserves of a mere 26,000. It's actually cutting it quite fine. And however, we do have contingency allowances in the budget, and we're hoping that we won't need them. Next slide, please. The calculation of the precept depends upon the total income we need to raise and the total number of Band D properties in the house, in the town. The precept has to increase from 1.48 million to 2.36 million. The number of properties has increased from 10,445 to 10,478, which is a tiny increase. And the one divided by the other gives us the £225.50 that we need to raise to cope with devolution. That is the increase of £83.43, which works out to exactly £1.60 per Band D household per week. Next slide, please. That shows the distribution of Band D of all properties in Portishead. There are in fact about 12,000 properties in Portishead. A small number in Band A, just over 500, 2,000 in Band D, just under 3,000 in Band C, approximately 3,000 in D, and then decreasing numbers in the more expensive bands. 44% of our properties are in Bands A, B or C, who would be paying far less than the average increase. There are many exemptions available, and this is why the total tax base is 10,500 properties rather than 12,000 physical properties that physically exist in the town. Next slide, please. What does our precept look like in the context of North Somerset as a whole? Well, we don't know what the numbers will be for 26-27. These are the numbers for 25-26. You can see that our spending this year is likely to be about 6.1% of the total burden on taxpayers. And if you look at that list on the right-hand side, you'll see the Portishead special expense charge of £3 per Band D property per year. That will disappear from the assessments, council tax bills this year. Next slide, Bill. That you can present as a small, I admit, saving. The £83.43 that we want to charge extra, or that we feel we have to charge extra, is partially offset by this reduction in the North Somerset charge of £3.21. The net increase per year is therefore £80.22, which is £1.54 per Band D household per week. Right. You might be wondering where the precept is likely to go in future years and how it compares with other councils. Next slide, please. The future impact of devolution is uncertain. We have made some financial forecasts which go up to 2031-32. That is to say, to the end of the council, which is elected in 15 months' time. Those forecasts are being continually refined as new data becomes available, but they contain so many approximations, they're not yet in a fit state for publication. But there are plenty of future activities that might transfer to Portishead Town Council. We don't know yet what they are. They might include the library function. They might include Parish Wharf Leisure Centre. We don't know. At this stage, we think those are either too complicated legally or too much work physically for us to be able to cope. We don't know whether they will generate income. We don't know whether we'll get grants. We don't know if we'll have to borrow money. We don't know how good our current best estimates of costs are. We have taken a lot of advice to produce those costs from North Somerset, potential contractors, independent advisors. But we might still be wrong. But broadly, we expect our costs to be in line with other town councils who have been affected by a devolution process. Next slide, please. These are some towns in Wiltshire and Somerset that have already started going down the devolution path. At the moment, we are the cheapest of all of the possibilities at £142 for the current year. All of those towns, of course, are expecting to post increases next year. And we are likely to be around the third cheapest. Those are described as proposed, by the way, because I have not yet seen minutes of town council meetings ratifying them. They are, however, appearing in the agenda papers. It's quite clear that all towns go through the devolution process, will finish up with precepts which look like somewhere between £250 and £350 per year. I would not be surprised to see us heading in the same direction. We don't want that precept to be higher than necessary. We would like to be re-elected, but we have to recognise that if we don't take over these assets that North Somerset can no longer afford to run, they're just not going to be there. And if we do take them over, we're going to have to pay for them. Bridgewater, by the way, is a bit of an outlier. I'm not sure why, but the fact that it has over 90% of its property bases in Band D or lower may have something to do with it. So, next slide, please. To sum up, we are expecting a budget deficit of £152,000 funded by using surplus reserves. Our business as usual costs will remain under control at 1.09 million net of any income. Our new initiatives will cost just over £100,000. Devolution from North Somerset starting the 1st of April will cost 1.3 million net of income and grants and including the final setup costs. Our reserves will remain within policy guidelines. This is not a perfect budget. It's subject to far more uncertainties than I would like. At the moment, we simply do not have better information. But it's the best we can do. And therefore, next slide, please. I propose that that motion be adopted by the council. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Well done. Thank you for all your hard work on it. Are there any immediate questions from the audience? Bob, yeah, go on. Yeah. Yeah, can you come to the mic? Yeah. We'll take a few questions and then we'll come to the councillors.
The only question I really have is that they're talked about traffic calming at High Down, which I'd be interested in. Yeah. The comment I wanted to make really, and it's unfortunate that those aren't here that made comment, this talk about 700%, people forget this council would have gone bankrupt when we came in 2019 if we hadn't put it up.
Yeah.
You know, the reason it went up big last time was because it was ridiculous. They were going to go bankrupt. And so the council without devolution is still very appropriately financed and very reasonable, and it wouldn't have been a big increase. Yeah. Devolution is essential because otherwise no lake grounds, no play areas, no green areas. Is that what we want in our town? I don't think so.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob. Yeah. Yeah, we'll just do Marie and then we'll just take Marie, I think, because then we'll go to the councillors, Mike. Okay. Yeah.
So I absolutely support local devolution. You know, overseeing local facilities locally. I'm absolutely, you know, in favour of. So, and thank you for all your hard work. Really appreciate it. I think for me that there's two immediate questions that if I was sitting as a councillor, I'd want to know. I'm very interested where you've got a surplus and you've got a bankrupt North Somerset Council that they're not pulling that money back.
It's not their money to pull back, it's ours. They have no legal right to it whatsoever.
So that's a very interesting governance thing that I've learnt. The second thing for me is that we've got, for me, it almost needs to be separated, that you're transferring facilities, parks, etc. I'm still not clear that those parks, etc., you said they have to be inspected each week. The bins have to be dealt with. There must be some resources attached to that that should come across from the North Somerset Council.
It's very limited. They obviously are getting some finance in terms of the developer S106 money, but they basically everything is empty. There is nothing there. They've already in North Somerset assumed that they're never going to spend another bean on play areas, for example. So there are no resources to come across because they haven't got any.
So they wouldn't empty bins and they wouldn't cut grass.
No,
and they wouldn't do that.
If we don't do that, that's what's going to happen. Yeah, they will stop doing those things.
And they've said that very clearly. I think the public need to know that they've said that very clearly.
Yeah. So I mean, we saw their proposals, or they were just going to come in and take out 20% of the litter bins. That's what they were going to do.
So for me, in terms of the resources that are transferring, I think that needs to be very clear. Because when North Somerset Council are arguing that they want to put up their charge by, let's say, 10%, they've already taken money off Portishead services to start with, and then they've added on 10%. They're actually reducing services if they're not transferring services as they are currently running.
Yes, their services will be reduced to effectively the statutory minimum.
And I think that needs to be very, very clear.
Excuse me, could you say what the statutory minimum is?
Adult social care, child social care, and a few other things like that. Roger will be able to better.
Curbside bin collections, running elections, there's all those sort of things. Yeah.
And then just the final comment, I think £1 million in setup costs, I think that needs to be challenged because for me, that is an extortionate cost to what's actually in the bill. It's almost doubling the requirement. I appreciate there is a need for that, but
the £1 million is not setup costs. That's our first estimate of operating costs for the first year. The setup costs are £250,000, and that was budgeted in this year. We're expecting a lot of it to spread over into next year. I can give you a rough breakdown of what's in that.
I just think you need to justify, for me, you need to justify taking over the services and running them, and then the additional money that will be required to do the project. For me, they're two entities. And if you're going to increase the cost to residents of 58%, you have to say what it would cost for Portishead to run these services and then the additional projects that you want to do on top.
We have that information. I'm very happy to disclose it as appropriate.
But I think you need to share that with Portishead residents.
Yeah, can I just say,
before we can get that extra money.
We will be doing more of this. We are producing, we're calling it a devolution prospectus, which we hopefully will be providing to every household in Portishead, which will explain the sort of things you say. Because obviously, on one hand,
I just think if you get to that heating or eating situation, people are in very, very dire circumstances. So whatever decision you make today has to be done with that in mind and the real gravity of the situation. It's not, oh, well, I can afford it. It's that some people just can't.
Very good point, yeah. Line which we're going to take, and then we're going to move to a councillor discussion and the motion. Okay. All right. What's the comment online? Sorry, Steve.
Shall I read it? Question online from Laura Porter, which says, in taking over Somerset Hall, how will you ensure equitable access for all of our residents, please? I trust your budget includes improving the lift. Please, will you commit to engaging disabled people in meaningful levels of engagement to understand what access means?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. We'll be inviting you or your colleagues to a workshop in the near future because as we mentioned, we're bringing in some people to do some space planning and look at those sort of issues. So we'll invite you to that. Okay, thank you. Right. Councillor, is there any questions from the councillors? Roger. Yeah.
Yep. First of all, John, thank you very much for yet another well delivered and well thought out budget. I know an awful lot of work goes into these budgets, and I just wanted to reflect for a second upon the time that I spent on this council in the dim and distant past, some 30 years ago, when we sat round a table in the middle of here with a few bits of paper talking about the budget that Portishead Town Council had when we were responsible for a couple of flower beds and maybe the odd play park, when we were charging pence. And a lot's been made of the fact that there's been a substantial increase. And that's right, there has been a substantial increase, but there's also been a substantial increase over the years before we've even got to devolution in what this council has been doing. And that was backed by the people of Portishead, who didn't want to see Portishead continue to stagnate, and they wanted Portishead to grow and to see the areas that we all love flourish. And I think that's the sentiment that's behind this budget. And I am hopeful that in looking at all the detail that we've been through tonight, and that was a substantial amount of detail, that some people have got some extra surety here that we're not just writing this down on the back of a fag packet and throwing figures around, but we're actually doing the work behind the scenes to make sure that we know what the costs are going to be, as much as anyone can know what costs are going to be in the future. I was going to say, in an ideal world, North Somerset wouldn't be doing this, but actually I'd revise that and say, in an ideal world, North Somerset wouldn't need to do this because they should never have had this in the first place. Town councils should always be looking after the assets in their towns. It was set up wrong in the first place, and now we're putting it right. Unfortunately, we're doing it in the middle of a financial crisis, which is the worst time to do anything. But we're in a situation where that has to happen. So hopefully people will look at the budget, understand the amount of work that's gone into it, and understand why we are doing this. Thanks.
Thanks, Roger. Mike, did you want to say something? Sorry. Yeah.
Not a lot, really. Just to add a couple of things in relation to what Roger and Bob have mentioned. Yes, historically, previous councils kept the precept extremely low or even negatively, and so the reserves were very low and nothing was much spent in this town. I grew up under the PUDC, and I think Portishead probably had a lot more pride in its town in those days. I mean, certainly there was a direct staff, probably quite a few people were employed. I don't know quite how many of them were down the lake grounds, well, I should think 3 or 4 permanently. But I personally feel that the devolution and bringing all these assets back into the town would be very positive, and I will certainly be voting in favour of it.
Thanks, Mike. Any other councillors want to say anything? Bob, come on.
Most of the councillors know my concerns about Somerset Hall. I'm still worried about it, and I think we really need to tread carefully. I don't necessarily like the way that LCP have ran the precinct area. I don't want to steamroll over it, but going back to 2019, the previous Conservative council spent £120,000 on a brand new, gorgeous pavement that sat on the precinct. We now have Port Marina that's covered half of it. A race course of signs from all the shops, and obviously Parsons with their tables and chairs. And now we have a nice little parcel collection point, which is right outside Somerset Hall. My concerns are that obviously that pavement is already got weeds growing out of it. It's moss underneath all the tables and chairs. There's no scope for any of the public to use it. Obviously, we have the show in the summer with the dancers on there, and now they're struggling. We have the food bank now pushed down to the bottom end, and people having to queue up right into the car park. that to me is a concern when we were looking to take over Somerset Hall and improve Somerset Hall, and what benefit that like LCP are gaining, and we are still not gaining anything from the areas around it.
Make some good points, Bob. Obviously, our lawyers are going to be looking at this and the way the lease and the current land ownership is and the obligations, because it's not right at the moment, frankly. So, yeah. But there's a good point. Janet, final point then from councillors, then we'll move to the vote. So, Mike, final 2 points.
Okay, very, very quickly. When I was helping with the consultation, I made it very clear that I thought that it would probably cost £2 a week. And people thought at the time when I was talking to them that that would be a price worth paying in order to save our land and improve it.
Okay, thanks, Janet. Mike, final word.
I'm sure it's not the final word. I was just reflecting, I worked as a manager within North Somerset Council for near on 25 years. And year on year, I saw North Somerset Council budget being squeezed, essentially from central government funding, and statutory demands increasing, mainly because of the level of need in children and adult services and the attached costs increasing, which is a whole workshop in its own right. But it's come to a point for North Somerset and probably most local authorities where they can't square the circle unless they've got unless they've got a trust fund behind them from 1850 or something. So I see this as an opportunity that if we don't step in and increase the precept, we risk the local assets being increasingly run down and eventually closed, and that will have a demoralizing and downward spiral on this town. So although there is a cost which none of us wish to take on balance, it's better take on those costs to protect what we have, and not only protect what we have, but hopefully develop it, I believe, develop it further. I think also I would like to say that there's a lot of due diligence going on around these assets. For example, the Lake Grounds and Somerset Hall potentially represent significant costs, but we're doing due diligence around them both. And if we can square that circle, they produce opportunity for further development, further volunteer engagement, further grants, but more than that, further activities that the community will benefit from. So my view is rather than seeing this as a downward spiral, we should grasp it as an opportunity. As Roger said, we in a sense, perhaps these things should have never been taken away from the town in the first place. And it's a strange journey by which they've come back, but I think we should grab it, and therefore I would vote to support this recommendation.
Thank you, Mike. All right. We are now going to, we're on item 8, and the recommendation is that the Portishead Town Council budget for 26-27 be approved. Can I have a proposer for that? Roger, seconder. John, all those in favour of that? Okay, so that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, and then we have the legal motion. So the precept 2026-27. That the recommendation is that the council tax precept charge attributable to Portishead Town Council expenditure be set at £225.50 per Band D household per annum. Number 2, that the council tax increase Band D of £1.60 per week or £83.43 per year is noted. Those residents paying in Band A and B will pay significantly less, as John said, and there are council tax exemptions for the qualifying residents. point 3 is its property charge is expected to generate precept income of £2,362,825 for the year ending the 31st of March 2027. So that's the recommendation. Do I have a proposer for that, please? Janet, seconder, Roger, all in favour? Okay, so that's passed. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you very much, members of the public, for your input on that. So that's now passed. The process is we now notify North Somerset Council. They have to approve it at their council meeting. So we hope that Tim, Roger and Sue and Caritas might support that. Because it'd be disappointing if you didn't. Okay. So that will go through, and then obviously then that will appear in people's council tax bills from the 1st of April. Okay, we have a few other smaller items. Is there any other reports from North Somerset councillors? You don't have to say anything if you don't want to, but Roger, do you want to give an update? Yeah.
I was just going to, and I think Caritas wanted to say something, and probably Sue as well. I'm not sure about whether or not Tim did, but I'm going to be as brief as possible to make sure that if they want to say something, they have an opportunity. Most of the time has been spent recently down at North Somerset. For those that don't know, I'm cabinet member for Adult Social Care and Stronger Communities. So, this is where the money goes, I guess. A lot of it will fall on my doorstep. We've done an awful lot of work on the budget. Over the last 2.5 years, we have stripped millions of pounds out of the adult social care budget, which is a horrible thing to do, because this is what supports people in living the best lives that they can, people who maybe aren't quite as fortunate as the rest of us. But government funding cuts mean that we have to do it. In addition, we've now had the fairer funding formula come through, which I think has been branded the unfairer funding formula, certainly when it comes to North Somerset Council, where we have, despite all of the challenges we have in the area, we've actually done worse yet again than would be expected. So we fall backwards again. Part of this is down to the government insisting that in their calculation, every Band D property is charged at, was it £2,061. Trying to remember the slides I keep saying. £2,061. And because we don't charge £2,061, it's more like 1,600, we actually lose out massively on the grant. So we're being hit from every single angle there, hence the local devolution stuff on top of everything else. Hence I've got another, I think it's 5 million to cut from my budget again. I don't know where that's coming from. You can only cut so many jobs. We need social workers, we need occupational therapists. It's a really dire state. So North Somerset has asked the government to give us the opportunity or the flexibility to increase beyond the 5% or 4.99% cap. As a one-off to drag us back into the zone that the government says that we should be in, and that's where it stands. And so, on top of everything that goes on here, there's that going on in the North Somerset background, which is driving all of this. And I'm not saying everybody should be concerned about this, but I'm saying everybody should be aware of where this is coming from, and that it's not North Somerset or Portishead who are pulling those levers. It's central government that are pulling the levers, and most of the money that we would have expected to be in our budget in North Somerset has been given to councils up north, probably who support certain political parties. I think I'll draw a line on that one.
I have no idea what you mean, but yeah. Caritas, did you want to say anything? Yeah. Yeah, please. Yeah. We'll come to you in a sec, Sue. Thanks. Yeah.
My turn to go first, Sue. Yeah, my priorities, apart from the usual casework, which I won't go into, is I'm going to be starting in the next few weeks a petition that I mentioned in the last meeting to try and get North Somerset, though they probably won't, to reconsider parking restrictions for residents living near the site of the proposed rail developments, because it's something that really, really concerns residents. The other quick thing that I'm working on as well with Roger is that we are looking at the WECA proposals for joining WECA. Roger and I, which is the wonderful thing about having independence, come at it from different angles. I am very concerned about the accountability and the democratic deficit that would come from us joining WECA. I can see all the benefits. So one of the things I'm going to be pushing hard for is that the public have a bigger voice in WECA. And I've already had conversations with the WECA mayor, and I intend to have more, because she's very good. She replies to you if you email her. Push for that at North Somerset, but also through WECA as well, because it's not devolution like this is devolution. It's regionalisation, and so I'll be pushing for that as well. And I also sit on the Local Government Association's National Committee on Devolution and Regional Authorities, so I'll be using that to argue the case as well there. And the only final thing I wanted to say is to say thank you again. And John Davey, Janet, you need to loan him to North Somerset, because that is the clearest, most coherent description of budgetary processes I have ever seen. And I include budgetary processes I've been given by North Somerset staff.
Don't applaud, just throw money.
It was clear, it's educational, and it's terribly sorry that those people that have problems found it, they had to disappear. If they'd stayed, maybe they would have found some of their questions answered, but never mind. Good luck to you all and well done. And yeah, I'm so proud. Thank you.
Thanks, Caritas.
Caritas, can you just remind us what role it is you're going to be playing in North Somerset over the next year?
Oh, yeah. So I'm currently vice chairman of North Somerset, and then I'll become chairman of North Somerset while all this devolution section 114 stuff's going on. What a year, hey? And they're so going to regret choosing me, I tell you. Thanks.
Like it. Thank you. Sue. So you may have the mute button on. I can't see.
That's it. No, yes, that's right. Yeah, can you hear me now?
We can.
Good, great. Okay. Well, first of all, I think like everybody else, I must say thank you very much to John Davey, because that was very detailed. A lot of work has gone into what you have done. So thank you very much indeed. That's very, very clear. And I also want to thank Roger with what he has just said. I agree with what he has said as well, which I often do. But just to give you some idea of what I've been doing over the last sort of couple of months or whatever, is to say that I've had people talking about overhanging large trees, yellow lines, Portishead Railway, Tower Farm development, bus stops, missed recycling collections, bus pass renewals, and much more. So quite varied, and a lot of that comes either direct or through my monthly surgery. So yes, I'm very active behind the scenes and everything else, but carry on. You are doing a grand job.
Thank you, Sue. Thanks for your support. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you. Okay, Mike Johnson sitting next to me is the chair of our planning and advisory group and placemaking. And Mike, any highlights?
Highlights. Well, over the last couple of months, What can I think of? I mentioned trees, I think, last time, specifically because we had loads and loads. But nesting season, of course, so it's the busy time for tree and TPOs and TRCAs and such like. So we've had a crop of those. General normal extensions and this, that, and the other. 3 in the High Street. One was an extension to Boots Opticians for consultation rooms at the rear. The other one was a couple of weeks ago for the signage for Sports Direct. And we were concerned about their left-hand window. If you're standing at the front looking at it, it showed an advertising sign, in fact, the whole window. And we weren't sure whether it's going to be illuminated or not. And if that was the case, then there could be potential issues with residents living over above the shops on the opposite side of the road, etc., and people passing by. So we made note of that when we sent our comments through to North Somerset Council, who, as we all know, make the final decision. The other one that struck us as being difficult was an HMO application above the old electrical shop, which is now changed. That was for 6 bed sits, effectively, with little tiny en suites, going up into the loft with a huge dormer at the rear. 3 parking bays, which were causing concern for the sorting office staff. Vehicular access in and out and such like. We rejected it. We did not approve it on the grounds that it was overdevelopment and that we felt that the increase in the number of people living there, because it's a 2-bedroom flat at the moment, was just too much, and it was inappropriate really for that site and that building. And that really wraps that up. Roger? Oh, the banking hub. Yeah. Well, that's coming. That's pending for this next planning meeting. I can mention it. Yeah.
I guess so. Basically, we need to. The banking hub has sort of has been an issue. They've put in a planning application, so everyone thinks it's going to be a particular shop on the high street. They should not have gone public because they've not actually signed the leases yet. Okay.
Well, that's interesting because we were told that when we had some information from said banking hub representative when we had down in the plaza a couple of months ago, that we weren't told where it was because of what Paul's just told us. So I'm therefore surprised. I didn't know that. I'm surprised that it's not in the public.
It's only just come in today. There was a couple of emails, but basically, obviously they have been looking at that site. They have not yet signed the lease. So, but they put a planning application in. Yeah, early.
I know that work was going on in there yesterday. When I went past, the lights were on. First time the lights have ever been on in there since they shut down, and there was workmen in there. So maybe things are moving at speed. Who knows? Let's keep our fingers crossed.
The planning application, of course, is available online to see.
So yeah, the banking hub. I think it's got to be in before the 1st of June. Anyway, it will be somewhere in the high street. It might move. That's all. Yeah. Keep our fingers and toes crossed. Yeah, it's a good location, so let's hope it just goes through. Yeah. Okay, Emma's not here, so we haven't got an update on community matters. The next item is the communications plan. I think we might do some more communication on the budget. Wild idea, but I thought we might. And obviously we will publish the full detail. If I should have said, actually, we've got a couple of hard copies. If the remaining residents would like a hard copy of the presentation, I've got it here, so we can distribute that in a second. I think we should, Steve, we'll probably do a little advertising that you've joined at some point. So we'll get a mugshot from you, and you're staying here, and you did sign, and you're still here. Yeah, so we'll publicise that, but obviously there's some more budget comms to do, getting the main messages across, picking up some of the points the residents made this evening. So you can never do too much communication on this sort of stuff, so we will do that. Anything else that people think we should put on the comms plan? Okay. Right, the next meeting is on Wednesday, 12th of March, and what I'll do now is we have a couple of items which are commercially sensitive, so that we'll have to ask the public to leave and we'll close things, but I have got the things here, so bear with me, don't go yet. Let me just read this thing out and then I'll come and distribute the... No, it's fine. You can wait for a second. I just got to read out, under the Public Bodies Act 1960, members of the public and press are required to leave the meeting. Item 14, due to the sensitive and confidential natures to be discussed. Recommendation to agree to exclude the public and press. All in favour? Okay, fine. Right, we'll now formally close the meeting. I'll come and give you those. And then we'll leave. Yeah.